The Observation Zone Prologue, The Signal Beneath, by Dorian Jones, U.S. Arctic Listening Post Log, Designation, Boreal Station, Date October 11th, 1971, Status Classified, Clearance Echelon 3, only 2147 hours, Seismic Anomaly recorded at 71 degrees 23 northeast, 129 degrees 12 west, duration 23 seconds. Pulsation consistent with hydrothermal vent activity, but source located beneath stable permafrost shelf. Repeating frequency noted. Prime numbers, escalated to command. It's not a goddamn whale call, Heller. Filter the sonar again and isolate that frequency. See if it matches anything from the Cold War Acoustic Signature Index. It's clean, too clean. Every pulse has perfect amplitude decay, like it was designed. The station had been quiet for 6 months. The Soviets were no longer testing under-ice nuclear detonations, and satellite overpasses had returned to routine. But the anomaly, low and persistent, continued to pulse, every 7 hours, on the dot. It's as if something's counting, or calling. Could be geothermal resonance, but I've never seen resonance output a Fibonacci spiral in sonic form. Shut it down. No more logging. Scrub the backups. We'll classify this as sensor drift and lock the equipment room. At 2300 hours, all recordings were sealed. The chamber beneath the ice remained undisturbed. No further expeditions were authorized. Satellite sweeps were redirected. The entry to the crawl space tunnel was welded shut. 4 days later, Boreal Station was abandoned. 2 months after that, it was erased from the official U.S. Arctic Outpost registry. But the signal never stopped. It simply waited. Chapter 1. Boreal reopened. The aurora shimmered above the endless Arctic plain, its curtains of green and violet flickering across the night sky like the pulse of some distant living organism. Beneath it, an aging metal structure squatted in the snow, its antenna mast leaning slightly as if the weight of years had bent it. Boreal Station, a ghost of the Cold War, shuddered for decades, yet now stirring with fresh breath as the world's climate crisis forced humanity to look north again. A helicopter, a military-grade CH-148 Cyclone, cut through the night sky, its blades scattering snow like shards of glass. Inside, 5 passengers sat hunched in their bulky gear, the hum of the engine masking the unease in the cabin. "I can't believe they picked this place," Claire McKenna murmured, staring out of the window at the featureless white expanse below. Boreal Station doesn't exactly scream state-of-the-art. "They didn't pick it," Dr. Lena Weiss replied, her breath fogging up the glass. "They dug it up. There's a difference." Claire studied Lena for a moment. The German glaciologist looked like she belonged here, with her platinum hair tied back in a severe braid and her pale blue eyes fixed on the horizon as though she could see through the storm. Claire, on the other hand, was a NASA exobiologist, more used to sterile labs and Martian simulations than the raw hostility of the Arctic. Her hands itched from the cold, despite the gloves. It was an omen. It felt like stepping into someone else's grave. 5 minutes out, Major Emmett Doyle announced, his voice cutting through the cabin. His military presence was unmistakable, square jaw, buzz cut, posture like steel. The patch on his shoulder read, U.S. Arctic Research Division. But Claire had her doubts. He didn't look like the research type. He looked like a man who'd spent more time giving orders than taking ice core samples. 5 minutes and no turning back, said Tomi Koskinen, the Finnish sonar engineer sitting opposite her. His grin was lopsided, but there was warmth there. Better hope this old tin can still has power. The helicopter touched down with a shudder, kicking up a clyde of snow. The station loomed ahead. A silhouette of corroded metal panels and half-buried outbuildings. Lights flickered in the windows. Someone had been here recently. Or something. Arrival at Boreal Station. The group disembarked, their boots sinking into the powdery crust of snow. The air was razor-sharp, burning in their lungs. Claire tilted her head up, staring at the station. The place looked dead, yet alive. Wind howled through the gaps in its frame, making it groan like a shipwreck caught in eternal ice. "Let's move. We've got 30 minutes before this storm eats us alive. Lena, you and McKenna, head to the main lab. Tomi, help me check the generator shack. Rivera, get the comms up and running." "On it," said Miguel Rivera, their communications expert. He adjusted his thick glasses, the lenses fogging instantly. His duffel bag clanked with equipment as he trudged toward the main tower. Claire followed Lena into the station's primary structure. The heavy steel door groaned as they pushed it open, revealing a stale, frozen interior. The air smelled faintly metallic, like rust and old blood. "This place is charming." "It will do," Lena replied, brushing frost from a dusty console. "Once we have power." The interior corridors were lined with peeling paint and frost-coated pipes. Every sound echoed. Boots on steel, the creak of settling metal. Claire felt as if the station itself were listening, holding its breath. The sub-basement. By nightfall, they had the generators online. The hum of power gave the station a semblance of life, but it didn't erase its haunted aura. While the others worked on setting up sleeping quarters and equipment, Lena beckoned Claire down a narrow staircase that led below the main deck. "Look at this," she said, shining her headlamp on a sealed bulkhead. This wasn't in the schematics. The metal hatch was welded shut. Strange etchings marred its surface. Letters, perhaps numbers, scrawled by a hand long gone. Claire crouched, running her gloved fingers over the marks. They weren't standard maintenance codes. They looked older. Think it's a storage room? Or something they wanted never to be opened? Claire felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold. The metal seemed warmer here, as if it held some internal heat. She leaned closer, pressing her ear against it. Thump, thump, thump. She jerked back. A sound, a deep, rhythmic vibration. Lena froze beside her. "You heard that?" "Yeah, like a heartbeat." They said nothing more, just exchanged a glance, heavy with unspoken questions. Somewhere behind that welded door, the ice was hiding a secret. Dinner with ghosts. That night, the five of them sat in the cramped mess hall, eating rehydrated meals under the flicker of aging fluorescent lights. Conversation was sparse. "So, Dr. Weiss," Tommy said, breaking the silence, "on a scale of 1 to 10, how cursed is this place?" 10. At least. Good to know we all agree this isn't normal. "We're not here to tell ghost stories," Emmett snapped. "We have 6 weeks to map the ice shelf collapse pattern and collect seismic data. That's it. No detours, no distractions." But Claire couldn't shake the sound from the sub-basement door, the heartbeat. She could feel it even now, faintly, like a vibration in the floor beneath her boots. Discovery of the first recording. The next day, Rivera unearthed an old metal locker in the comms tower. Its lock rusted shut. Inside were reel-to-reel tapes, marked with faded labels. OZ Theta. Observation Zone Theta? What the hell is that? Sounds like Cold War codenaming. Maybe experiments? They're irrelevant. Leave them. Claire and Rivera exchanged a look. That was too quick, too dismissive. Emmett knew something. That night, when the others were asleep, Claire and Rivera loaded one of the tapes into an old player they'd managed to repair. Signal repeating at intervals of 7 hours, frequency consistent with prior contact protocols. We advise containment, no direct contact with the core. Repeat, no direct contact with the core. Core? What core? The tape dissolved into static, but not before something else bled through. A low, resonant hum, almost like a voice buried under layers of ice. Unincorporated the first pulse. 2 days later at 0300 hours, the hum began. At first they thought it was a generator fault. Then the snow around the station began to tremble, ever so slightly. "This is coming from below," Tommy shouted, watching his instruments spike. "It's not seismic activity, it's a pattern. Look, prime number intervals. It's the same as the tape. The signal never stopped. Shut down all equipment. We're not touching that signal. I want full lockdown now." But it was too late. The pulse resonated through every wall, every steel beam of Boreal Station. For a moment, Claire swore the lights dimmed in sync with the sound, like the heartbeat of something enormous, buried and waiting. The chamber. On the 5th day, they made the decision to drill. Officially, it was Lena's call. She claimed the readings suggested a hollow space beneath the ice, perfect for research. In truth, the entire team wanted answers. Even Emmett's protests sounded more like fear than logic. The drill cut through layers of compacted snow and ice, descending meter by meter. Then it hit something, metallic. The hollow echo came back through the drill shaft. "Did you hear that?" Not exactly what I expected under 200 meters of ice. We widened the borehole. We're opening it. And as the drill bit scraped metal, the pulse returned, louder, almost welcoming. Chapter 2. The Rhythms Below. They called it the chamber. That's what the team settled on. Even though no one had officially entered it yet, it was the hollow space the drill had found 217 meters beneath the station. An anomaly buried in solid ice, shaped too perfectly to be natural, too ancient to be man-made. The borehole camera was deployed first. A sleek, flexible probe with high-definition optics descended into the darkness, its LED lights cutting a beam through centuries of compressed frost. Depth, 210, 215. Slowing now. The camera lowered past the final layer of fractured ice and into open space. What it showed on the monitors made the room fall silent. A smooth, metallic dome, nearly spherical. Its surface glimmered faintly under the camera's light. Not polished like steel, but semi-reflective, like obsidian or liquid mercury, frozen mid-movement. Not a single seam, rivet, or structural joint could be seen. My God, that's not natural. No, it's engineered. Engineered by who? This thing's buried under glacial ice, tens of thousands of years old. We're not even supposed to be looking at it. We are now, and we're not turning away from this. Pulse analysis begins. In the communications lab, Rivera worked through the night, analyzing the low-frequency pulses that had been registering since the borehole opened. The seismic monitors weren't just detecting vibration, they were picking up modulation, signal behavior. He ran it through a frequency spread and noticed something strange. These aren't just rhythms, they're patterns, structured. He plotted the waveform on screen. It looked like peaks on a heart monitor, spaced at intervals that weren't random. Then he saw it. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17. Prime numbers. Claire, you're gonna want to see this. Let me guess. Math. More than math. Intelligence. This signal is too clean, too intentional. It's communicating. Prime numbers. They're universal constants. The first thing any intelligent life would use to show it understands logic, structure, thought. Claire sat back slowly. The hum she'd felt beneath her boots now had form, voice. Someone or something was speaking. A strange echo. The team decided to pump heated gas into the borehole to allow the camera further entry and probe for openings. As the mist swirled through the drilled shaft, the signal intensified. Then came the feedback. It started with the speakers in the control room, a sudden, high-pitched whine, followed by a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to tremble through the walls. Kill the power, all non-essential systems, now. It's not the power, it's bleeding through. Even with the monitors off, the sound continued. A sub-audible thrum, like the beating of the Earth's heart. Claire could feel it in her chest. Her vision shimmered at the edges. Something was interfering with her sense of self. She turned to Lena and saw the same confusion in her eyes. Amend. Disagreement and fear. Later that night, tensions boiled over in the galley. We should seal the hole, pour cement down it, and mark the station as compromised. Are you serious? We're on the verge of discovering something unprecedented, possibly pre-human, possibly not from Earth, and you want to fill it in like a pothole? I'm not going to stand by while 5 civilians stumble into first contact with God knows what. This thing wants us to open it. That should terrify you. We have protocols. You're a soldier, not a scientist. Stay in your lane. And you're playing with fire. This isn't science, it's seduction. Claire said nothing, but part of her agreed with both of them. The pulses felt like a voice calling out, yet something inside her recoiled every time it spoke. Amend. The dream. That night, Claire dreamt of falling. She stood alone on the ice, the stars pulsing above her like a heartbeat. A soft light flickered beneath her feet. The ground cracked, and she fell through miles of ice, tumbling in slow motion, until she landed silently inside the dome. It wasn't empty. A figure stood there, tall, robed, faceless, watching her, not moving, just waiting. Then she heard her own voice echoing, distorted, Welcome back, Dr. McKenna. She woke up screaming, soaked in sweat. It was minus 20 degrees Celsius in the room. Amend. The signal spreads. Over the following days, the signal changed. It was no longer a simple pulse. It began to shift pitch, a sequence, a tonal language. Claire and Rivera fed it into a spectrogram visualizer. The output resembled glyphs, lines, angles, patterns repeating in fractal-like spirals. It's trying to show us something, or teach us, or warn us. Then they realized something worse. It was propagating. The signal had started to reflect off the atmosphere. Weather stations over Greenland began picking up strange readings. A Chinese satellite picked up a non-natural pulse originating from Boreal. The Russians scrambled a drone flyover. They're coming. Every superpower with ears just heard us ring the dinner bell. On comma 70 in borrowing, Lena discovered something embedded in an ice core she'd been analyzing. From just above the chamber, microfractures formed a repeating pattern, invisible until backlit by specific wavelengths. It was a map, 7 circles, one in each polar region, each connected by thin lines, like a circuit diagram. This isn't a chamber. It's a node, a global system, buried under ice, built before we had language. Uncomma 70. The beacon activates. At 300 on the 7th day, the signal peaked. The orb inside the chamber, previously inert, emitted a pulse that triggered all instruments into static. The dome began glowing from within, casting a faint red shimmer upward through the borehole, like blood through a straw. It's responding. We've woken it up. I'm pulling the plug. Even if you kill the power, it's not ours anymore. It's transmitting on frequencies we don't control. As they argued, a nearby seismic station pinged back with a coded alert, a faint return signal from low Earth orbit. Something was out there, and it had heard them. Chapter 3. A Chamber in the Ice. The descent began at 0600 hours. The Arctic sky was still cloaked in darkness, lit only by the violet flicker of the aurora overhead and the narrow beam of the station's tower lamp. The borehole had widened just enough to allow a vertical shaft capsule, lowered by winch, built for confined rescues and vertical mining inspections. It would carry 2 at a time. The plan was simple. Lena and Claire would go first, scan the interior, take samples, and relay visual feed. Rivera and Tommy would remain at the surface with comms, and Emmett would watch from the command deck, rifle never far from hand. Try not to get abducted, and if you meet anything glowing, don't pet it. No promises. Uncomma 70. The descent. Claire's breath fogged her visor. The capsule creaked as it began to lower, the winch cable groaning in protest. The walls of the borehole pressed close. Ice scraped past the narrow windows in frozen blue silence. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. This is insane. Beneath all of this, a perfect chamber, something not of this earth. And I'm heading into it with a flashlight and a blood sample kit. We're almost there, 20 meters. As they passed below 200 meters, the radio crackled. Hearing something, getting interference. Then came a rising hum, not mechanical, not environmental, organic, pulsing, almost musical. It's responding to us. Look, the dome came into view. Even with minimal light, its surface shimmered. It was no longer just a sphere. Segments of the outer shell now glowed faintly, forming overlapping hexagons, like the shell of some alien insect. Patterns flowed across its surface, lines that moved without heat, circuitry, or light. It was alive. First entry. The capsule touched down on a narrow ledge of compacted ice inside the dome's hollow. A faint mist hung in the air, visible only when Claire's torch cut through it. The inside of the chamber was deathly still. No wind, no echo, no sound at all. The entrance to the dome wasn't a door. It was simply open. A soft indentation had formed, circular, as if the material of the shell had receded slightly, inviting entry. It wasn't open before, was it? No. Then how does it know we're here? Claire stepped forward, boots crunching on the frost-covered metal. As she crossed the threshold, a wave of warmth rippled through her spine. Not physical, not thermal, something emotional. She felt seen. Finally, inside the dome. The interior of the chamber defied explanation. It was larger on the inside than the scans had predicted, by a factor of 10. The walls curved away in impossible geometry, like walking through a mirrored cathedral, every angle both convex and concave depending on where you stood. In the center floated the object, a black sphere, roughly 2 meters in diameter, suspended without support, completely motionless. Its surface rippled gently, as though underwater, and from it came a soft, rhythmic vibration. It's not metal, not organic either. It's unknown. I can hear it, not with my ears, with my chest, like it's singing to my bones. She approached the sphere, hand trembling. A faint glow pulsed from within, soft blue at first, then green, then violet, then black again. The first touch, Claire reached out, barely a breath between her fingertips and the sphere. Claire, Lena, we're losing visual. Do not engage with the structure. Repeat, do not. It's beautiful. She touched it. The world snapped. The chamber flooded with light. The walls vanished. Claire's body lifted. No gravity, no time. Images poured into her vision. Distant stars blinking. Desert planets cracking. A black shape looming across the void like a continent in space. A single phrase echoed, not in sound, but in thought. Relight the lens. Then it was gone. Claire collapsed to the ground, gasping. Below, back on the surface, the capsule shot upward with emergency override. By the time it reached the surface, Emmett was already waiting, rifle raised, face pale. Claire staggered out, eyes glassy. Lena followed more slowly, silent. What the hell happened down there? It spoke. It showed me things. Stars, machines. It called itself a lens, a lighthouse. You touched it? I didn't mean to. Claire's pupils are non-reactive. Her body temp is dropping. She needs medical. No, I'm fine. I understand now. But she wasn't fine. She hadn't blinked in 3 minutes. Reviewing the feedback inside the control room, Rivera replayed the footage. But the moment Claire touched the sphere, the feed went blank. Pure white screen, total audio dropout, then static. Then a brief frame, a face, human-like, but with elongated features and eyes too large for the skull. A shimmer surrounded it, as though it were flickering between dimensions. That thing's not a recording. It's broadcasting through us. The sphere reacts. Hours later, the sphere began to rise. Its levitation increased by several meters. The borehole began widening, not through collapse, but as if the ice itself were retreating. And the pulses changed. Now they had rhythm, language, timing. Claire stood outside alone in the snow, staring up at the sky. Something's moving out there. It's heard us. And now, it's looking back. What did it show you? A map and a choice. A choice? Whether we light the others or not. Final scene, river of ice. As midnight struck, the glacier beneath Boreal Station shifted for the first time in 2,000 years, not from pressure, but from release. A low groan echoed through the ice. From satellite view, a faint line of heat now emanated from the station's location, a perfect circle burning through solid permafrost. Claire stood at its edge, eyes unblinking, listening. Chapter 4, The Echo Inside. Claire hadn't blinked in 13 minutes. Rivera counted. He was sure of it, having watched the replay again and again on a loop. In the footage from the capsule's interior, Claire touched the sphere, and then the loop began. 3 seconds, over and over. Claire looking into the camera, face serene. Claire looking into the camera, face serene. Claire, again. The timestamp remained the same. This isn't a loop. It's a reflection. He killed the playback and wiped sweat from his neck. It was minus 15 degrees Celsius in the comms room, and he was sweating. The dome had changed something. The Claire that returned. Lena examined Claire with professional detachment. Her pupils dilated, but unreactive. Body temperature 2 degrees below normal. EEG waves showed complex but stable patterns. Too stable. I feel fine, Lena. Clearer than I've ever felt. That's not comforting. It wasn't speaking to me, you know? It was speaking through me, like I was an amplifier, a lens. That's what it kept saying. Relight the lens. The coordinates must awaken. Her voice didn't echo the same way anymore. It carried a subtle delay, a faint vibration that made Rivera's teeth itch whenever she spoke. We're cutting power to the shaft and sealing it. The signal's interfering with orbital satellites now. NORAD scrambled 2 recon birds, and the Chinese are flying south from Svalbard. You can seal the ice all you like. It's already open. Above and below. Excuse me? She's not well. I'm perfectly well. You just haven't seen it yet. But you will. Signs in the ice. At sunrise, though the Arctic sun never truly rose, Tommy deployed a ground-penetrating drone over the shelf surrounding the dome. It returned in silence, its data drive blinking furiously. He opened the scan overlay. His hands froze. No, this isn't possible. The ice shelf was shifting, restructuring. Perfect hexagonal plates had begun forming in the ice, radiating outward from the dome like a blooming frost flower. At first, subtle, then measurable, as if the structure beneath was instructing the ice to reshape itself. That's not physics, that's command. The repetition effect. Stranger things followed. Lena began to find duplicates of her own logs, entries she never recorded, with timestamps from the future. Rivera's sleep monitor began replaying the same dream sequence every night, floating in space, no suit, no air, and yet, no panic, just the slow drift toward a light. Tommy heard his name whispered through the pipes, always at 3:03 a.m. This place is echoing us. No, worse, it's rehearsing us. Claire's journal. Emmett broke into Claire's private quarters that night. She hadn't left them in hours. Her journal sat on the desk, dozens of pages. They weren't in English, or any known language. Symbols filled the paper, etched in spiral formations. Black ink, a different symbol at the center of each spiral. Like nodes, lenses. He turned to the last page. 3 words, written in blood. It sees us. Behind him, Claire's voice. You shouldn't be in here. What is this? Instruction. For what? Alignment. Tensions, fracture. By the end of the week, the team no longer met together. Claire had become an island, still performing tasks, but only the ones she deemed important. She would walk to the dome alone and stand beside the borehole for hours, silent. Tommy began sleeping with his snow axe nearby. Lena started muttering to herself in German, writing equations no one could follow. Rivera barely spoke. He just listened, as if the station itself were telling him something. And Emmett? He paced, he watched, and he cleaned his sidearm every night. End. The mirror room. On day 10, the station changed. A door appeared where there was no door before. Rivera discovered it while fetching water. A corridor, freshly painted. A plaque, Observation Room Beta. This wasn't here yesterday. It was, you just weren't ready to see it. He entered. Inside, walls of mirrored alloy. Cold, perfect. But when he looked in the reflection, he was alone, except for one thing. A black sphere, hovering behind him in the reflection, but not in the room. It pulsed once. When he turned around, nothing was there, but he could still feel it. Radio silence. On day 11, all external comms died. Sat uplinks, weather telemetry, even Morse fallback, gone. No storms, no interference, just silence. The world, it seemed, had vanished. We're alone, entirely. We were never alone, entirely. The shimmer begins. Light began to bend strangely inside the station. Corners that used to meet cleanly, now distorted. Shadows flickered in rooms where no one stood. Lena's compass spun in slow circles, even indoors. The station's floor plan no longer matched the blueprint. The dome outside was glowing steadily now. Not violently, not dangerously, just waiting. It's realigning us, piece by piece. A memory that wasn't theirs. Rivera entered the lab one night and found Claire sketching. It was a child's room. Hand-drawn crayon detail. A blue curtain, a stuffed bear, a nightlight shaped like Saturn. Whose is that? Mine, I think, or hers, maybe, later. There's no way you could have drawn that from memory. It hasn't happened yet. Rivera said nothing. He backed out of the lab. Claire kept drawing. The bear in the picture had no eyes. Another blood on the snow. Day 12. Tommy didn't check in. His tracker led them to the edge of the dome. There in the snow, they found his axe and a perfect circle of melted ice. 10 meters across. No body. No tracks. Just the echo of the pulse, louder than ever. Chapter end. The reflection arrives. That night, Emmett stared into the mirror in the bunkhouse. His face looked back at him, but it blinked twice. Then it smiled. He hadn't smiled. This place is lying to us. Behind him, Claire appeared. It's not lying, it's showing. We're the ones who never understood what mirrors really were. Thump, thump, thump. In the silence that followed, Emmett raised his gun, and the reflection did not. Chapter 5. Ancient Coordinates. The body never returned. Tomi Koskinen, once the lightest soul at Boreal, was now nothing more than an absence. A vapor trail on the snow, a name left unspoken. Rivera stopped asking questions. Lena barely slept. Emmett cleaned his sidearm with religious precision. And Claire began drawing circles. Dozens of them. Another blood on the snow. The circles were always the same diameter. Claire etched them on paper, scratched them into frost on the windows, traced them with her finger in the condensation on her coffee mug. Always 7, interconnected, orbiting a central node. It wasn't until Lena overlaid one of Claire's diagrams onto the heat-mapped glacier topography that she understood. Each circle aligned with an anomaly, subsurface voids detected but dismissed decades ago. One in Antarctica, one in the Gobi Desert, one beneath the Amazon basin, another under the seabed near the Mariana Trench. Each matched coordinates from a Cold War archive labeled Observation Zone Global Theta Array. They're not random. They're the eyes, the lenses. Earth is a viewing platform, and we were never the ones looking out. It's not a weapon, it's an interface. Yes, for them. Sublime block. A message from below. On the evening of day 13, the sphere pulsed again. This time, it sent something upward, a high-frequency burst that bypassed every firewall and input block Rivera had set up. The message arrived as binary, but when decoded, it wasn't code, it was a voice. Sequence aligned, awaiting directive, vessel suitable, confirmed traversal. The screen displayed one word in glyph form, transit. It's asking permission from the others. They're watching us now, waiting to pass through. And what are you now? A key. Underscore. The archive. Lena raided the lower levels, digging through the ice-covered rooms beneath the station's original Cold War framework. She found an old storage vault behind a false panel marked thermal monitoring. Inside, brittle files, magnetic tape, and one rusting container with a broken seal and an American Eagle emblem. Inside was a typewritten document dated 1971. Title: Observation Zones. Purpose and containment. 7 geospatial nodes discovered via anomalous gravimetric data. Initial hypothesis: natural voids. Post-incident reclassification. Non-human constructs of uncertain origin. Signals suggest interlinked consciousness, a lattice system. Function unknown. Terminated project, lens array. Status sealed and buried under official denial. They knew. The Americans, the Soviets, they all knew. Underscore. The changing Claire. Claire no longer slept. She no longer blinked. She began speaking in unfamiliar dialects when she was alone, languages not cataloged in any global database. Rivera recorded one and ran it through a phonetic analyzer. The closest match was a fragmented Sumerian word, Najalem, that which sees through all veils. She stood at the borehole every night, repeating a single phrase, like prayer. 3 awake, 4 remain. 1 must consent. She's not just affected, she's inhabited. No, worse, she's collaborating. Underscore. An ultimatum. On day 14, Claire called a meeting. In the main galley, under flickering lights, she stood before them and said, with unsettling clarity, "This station will go dark in 72 hours. The next pulse will align the 4th node. After that, all 7, traversal begins. Traversal to where? No, through. It's not about where. It's about who survives the passage. You're talking about opening a door to God knows what. You think you're some kind of prophet now. No, Major. I'm a mirror. The light just had to find the right angle. Flee or fight. Lena and Rivera retreated to the observation loft. We should leave. There's still a chance. We take the snowmobiles, make for the Canadian outpost. It's 3 days, maybe less if we push. And what if the pulse reaches us anyway? What if it's not about proximity, but exposure? Then we're already dead, but I'm not letting that thing wear Claire like a glove and pretend she's one of us. I think we passed the point of being us a long time ago. Observation signal, the precursor signal. That night, the sphere began emitting a sound unlike any before, a sustained harmonic frequency that stretched across the range of human hearing and well beyond. Lena's teeth vibrated. Rivera began bleeding from his nose. The power grid surged. Monitors fried. Lights flickered and pulsed in geometric sequences that resembled glyphs. Claire stood in the main hallway, arms outstretched, bathed in the light. Vessel confirmed. Traversal imminent. Node realignment progressing. Welcome home. The vessel is whole. The gate is open. Emmett's choice. Emmett made his choice at 0400 hours. He armed 2 thermal charges, military grade, one for the borehole, one for the comms relay, still untouched by the signal. He entered the main chamber, rifle drawn. This ends now. Claire stood between him and the sphere. You won't stop it. You can't kill light with bullets, Major. Maybe not, but I can take out the battery. He fired. The shot passed through her. Claire shimmered, then stabilized. No wound, no blood, only a smile. You're still thinking in 3 dimensions. That's adorable. He ran. Observation. Lena and Rivera watched from the ridge above the station as the dome pulsed one final time. Then came the beam. A vertical column of pure light erupted from the ice, straight into the stars. It was silent. It left no heat, and it bent the sky itself around it, rippling space like water. From the clouds above, faint echoes returned. Not sound, not radio. Presence, and then stillness. Claire was gone. So was Emmett. So was the dome. Only a perfect circle of melted earth remained. 7 glyphs etched around its rim, glowing faintly. Last transmission. 1 week later, a Canadian weather drone picked up a shortwave signal from the Arctic shelf. We lit the 4th. The lattice hums. I see you all now. I see through you. The lens remembers. And then nothing. The ice, like memory, closed again. Chapter 6. The Lighthouse Effect. The light had reached space. From polar orbit, a Chinese satellite recorded the vertical beam emerging from Boreal Station. It wasn't heat. It wasn't electromagnetic. It was something else, something that bent sensor logic. The onboard AI flagged it as a refractive anomaly. Then it stopped responding. 3 minutes later, the satellite deorbited, fell like a stone, burned over the Bering Sea. No warning, no cause. No one in official circles connected it to Boreal, publicly, etc. The signal echoes in New Mexico. The VLA Radio Observatory recorded a spike in background radiation, resembling early cosmic microwave background data, but too sharp, too structured. In northern India, a young boy drew concentric circles into a grain field overnight, eyes open, unblinking. In Oslo, every single dog barked at 3:03 a.m., then stopped in unison. No one could say why. Not yet. Rivera's return. Rivera hadn't spoken since the beam. He and Lena had taken refuge in the backup station 5 kilometers from Boreal, a skeleton outpost with 1 generator, canned soup, and a shortwave set that only buzzed. It didn't just take them, it replaced them. We don't know that. I've seen Claire twice. Out the window. Different directions. Same smile, same face. Not walking, just watching. Lena didn't argue. She hadn't told him she'd seen Emmett's reflection in her shaving mirror the day before. It had winked at her. She hadn't shaved since. Etc. The artifact remains. Where Boreal once stood, only a crater remained, perfectly symmetrical, 70 meters in diameter. But the central depression had changed. On day 17, the ground began to glow. Buried at its heart was an artifact, not the original dome, not the sphere, but something new. A spiral of carbonized alloy, humming softly, partially submerged in the permafrost. The Canadians cordoned it off. The Americans denied its existence. The Russians deployed drones. None returned. Orbital interference. GPS satellites began behaving erratically within a 300-kilometer radius of the Arctic Circle. Aircraft instruments flickered. Starlink nodes dropped service. Magnetometers registered mild but persistent anomalies, waveforms with nested frequencies, like encoded harmonics. Dr. Adil Khan, an astrophysicist in Reykjavik, plotted the anomalies on a world map. He blinked. They formed a perfect 7-point array, matching the heat signature diagrams leaked from Boreal Station before it went dark. There, aligning, the Earth is becoming part of something, etc. Claire's transmission. On day 20, the signal returned. Shortwave burst. No carrier, just raw data. Then a voice. 4 points lit. One watches above. One stirs below. One waits inside. The lattice hums. The lens is awake. Prepare for the cascade. The message came with coordinates. A location in the Atacama Desert, Chile. One of the remaining nodes. Etc. Lena's choice. Weena stood outside the backup station in the snow, staring south. She held Rivera's old satellite phone in one hand and a printed copy of Claire's drawing in the other. 7 circles. Central glyph. A new glyph had appeared at the bottom. She didn't remember drawing it. It's not just a beacon. It's a call-and-response system. The scientist in her wanted to follow the coordinates, document the other nodes, understand the lattice. But another part of her, deep and mammalian, wanted to burn the map and disappear into the mountains. If we go, we don't come back, do we? We might not have a choice. Attach tag. The sky changes. On day 22, the sky shifted a realignment in deep space pulsars, subtle timing offsets that altered interstellar timing baselines by milliseconds. One astrophysicist described it as the stars blinking out of rhythm. Then came the pattern. A repeating signal from multiple directions, binary encoded prime chains embedded in radio noise. Triangulated to an unknown object outside the Oort cloud. Object was stationary. Then it began to move. Attached tag. Global reactions. China shut down all northbound airspace. The U.S. Air Force reactivated Cold War listening posts, including one beneath Greenland, last used in 1985. NATO quietly distributed classified warnings to Arctic patrol vessels. Avoid magnetic anomalies. Do not respond to transmissions. Do not approach unrecognized artifacts. Civilian broadcasts noticed it too. TikTok showed auroras twisting into spirals above Alaska. A girl in Finland went viral after live-streaming a night sky that briefly shimmered in 7 colors. Most dismissed it as a glitch, until it happened again, and again. Attached tag, the lighthouse effect. Claire had called it a lens, but Rivera finally understood. It wasn't just focusing light, it was focusing attention. The lattice wasn't for humans, it was for something else. To aim Earth like a telescope, or like a lighthouse, a warning, or a signal, or a guidepost. We didn't open a door, we lit a beacon. For what? Whatever's in the dark. Attached tag, final scene, orbit. In low Earth orbit, a commercial imaging satellite snapped a composite photo of the Arctic region. In the image, 7 symmetrical heat blooms could be seen across the polar landscape, each radiating slowly in spiral pulses. An 8th shape had appeared in the center of the grid, a swirling distortion, like lens flare with no light source. The imaging system glitched, then rebooted. Final metadata recorded a title overlay on the image. No one coded it in, it simply appeared. Text read, Inbound, Chapter 7, Descent into Paranoia. The Atacama Desert rolled out in all directions, a sun-blasted sea of silence. Lena had always dreamed of visiting, its telescope arrays, its ancient sky-gazing cultures. But now, as she stepped out of the rented 4x4 into the brittle heat, she felt none of that awe, only vertigo, like stepping inside someone else's dream. Rivera exited behind her, scanning the GPS. The path was wrong. The satellites said they were standing on a flat plain, but ahead of them stood a valley that didn't exist. Arrival at Node 5. At the heart of the valley was a depression in the rock, circular, of course, about 60 meters wide, shallow, perfectly symmetrical. A dry, white spiral of salt had formed at its center, as if something once radiated outward from that very spot. This matches the Boreal crater, almost exactly. But this one's older. Centuries, maybe. They set up camp a few meters from the rim, No wind, no insects, no signal. Just the quiet, ever-present hum beneath their boots, like tinnitus amplified by dread. The sky's wrong. The stars above twinkled faintly, but they weren't in the right positions. Orion was split down the middle. Polaris flickered like a candle. We've crossed into the lens field. The journal entries. Lena kept notes. By day 2, she had written 17 pages. By day 3, there were 43. But on day 4, when she opened her notebook, she found an entry she hadn't written. It read, "Rivera doesn't remember the first node. He will soon. Don't go near the spiral at night. The 6th is already awake. You are behind." She asked Rivera if he'd seen her notebook. "No. And don't leave it lying around if you're worried." "I don't. I sleep with it under my pillow." Apologies. The loop begins. On day 5, they awoke at sunrise. But by 2 p.m., the sun hadn't moved. They checked their watches, still ticking, but time refused to pass. Then it jumped. A 6-hour gap. Instantaneous. They both blacked out for 3 seconds. When they awoke, the camp had moved 30 meters east. Did we move the tent? No. The salt spiral in the valley had changed shape, subtly. The grooves were deeper, and the spiral hummed. Audible now. Apologies. Claire returns, sort of. That night, Lena stepped out of the tent for water. Claire was sitting on a rock across the valley. Just sitting, smiling, not moving, not breathing. No, she blinked. Claire vanished, but her shadow remained. Long, thin, stretching toward the spiral. Lena didn't sleep that night. Apologies. Memories overwritten. Rivera began confusing memories. He insisted he and Lena had already been here weeks ago. He described the crater in detail, even what lay beneath. "No, we only arrived 5 days ago. You drove. Then why do I remember dying here?" He showed her a scar beneath his ribs. It hadn't been there before. That night, he screamed in his sleep. When Lena tried to wake him, he grabbed her by the throat and whispered, "They're inside. There's no flesh left, only blueprint." He remembered none of it come morning. Apologies. The spiral opens on day 7. The spiral crater pulsed. Dust lifted. Sand fell upward in small trickles. In the center of the spiral, a seam cracked open. Inside, a mirror. Not glass, not metal. It was a perfect reflective pool, suspended vertically. Impossible. When Lena looked into it, she saw herself. Then another self, with glowing eyes. Then a third, Claire's face, layered beneath her own. She fell backward. The pool rippled, but never touched the ground. We were never meant to see the reflection. That's the warning. Warning of what? What happens when you start to recognize it? A part 2, contact. Lena reassembled a long-range antenna and tried to ping low-orbit satellites. Nothing. She switched to raw frequency sweep. At 20.013 megahertz, she received a pulse, 1 beat every 3.03 seconds. She recorded it. Later, when she slowed it by 10x and adjusted the pitch, she heard something beneath it. Echo, 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 repeating, calling to itself, across mirrors, across time. A part 2, the river of glass. On day 8, they awoke to find the spiral gone. In its place, a river. Smooth, black, glassy. It hadn't rained. The geography was unchanged. They could see no end in either direction. They tested the water. It wasn't water, or glass. No chemical signature. Touching it caused a memory to disappear. Rivera forgot his sister's name. Lena forgot the smell of her father's lab coat. They stopped touching it. A part 2, collapse. Rivera walked into the spiral on day 9. Lena watched him go. He never screamed, never looked back. He just stepped into the mirror at the center and became light. A ripple spread outward. Lena screamed, not in fear, but because the ripple passed through her, and for a moment, she felt every version of herself, thousands, some dead, some still children, one already in the Arctic dome, one smiling like Claire. A part 2, final scene, rewrite directive. Lena packed the satellite transmitter and left. No map, no plan. The sun didn't move. The spiral kept humming. She kept walking. On day 10, She found an old radio tower, dead since 1987, but the console was warm. A signal was already broadcasting. The words on screen read, Node 5, realigned, recalibration in progress, subject, Weiss integrity, 93%, directive, rewrite. Lena sat beside the console and began humming the pulse. Chapter 8, the second pulse. On day 14, since the boreal pulse, it began again, the second pulse. But this time, it wasn't confined to frozen domes or remote deserts. It struck everywhere, simultaneously, no warning, just a flicker in the air, a hiccup in consciousness. Across the globe, millions stopped mid-sentence and forgot what they were saying. A Part 2, Mass Forgetting in London. Commuters froze on escalators as the tube dimmed momentarily. When the lights returned, 83% reported missing time. Some had switched clothes, others couldn't remember where they worked. In Delhi, a television anchor delivered the evening news in fluent Russian. She didn't speak Russian. In Rio, a 4-year-old boy stared into the camera during a birthday livestream and whispered, "Your sky is not your sky. It was borrowed. The stars remember." Hospitals filled with patients reporting memory fractures, migraines, familiar strangers, duplicate passports, missing family pets. It was not madness, it was correction. Section, Lena's Awakening. Lena awoke on day 11 of her Atacama isolation to find her tent was gone. No tracks, no theft, just gone. She stood barefoot in a perfectly circular patch of flattened sand. No wind, no footprints. Her journal had rewritten itself. Dozens of new pages, in her handwriting, but she hadn't written them. Pulse 2 aligns the 5th node. Pulse 3 is the gate. If you remain uncorrected, you will not survive the transition. She closed the book, breathing hard. What transition? The sand answered, a hum rising from below. Section, False Faces. In New York, CCTV footage showed a man crossing Times Square 47 times in 12 minutes. Each time, his clothes changed. In Berlin, a woman saw her dead mother walking into a bakery and followed her in. The woman was real, fingerprinted, documented. But the woman had no memory of ever having a daughter. She wasn't lying. She had been rewritten. Section, Lena at Node 6, driven by whispers, silent directions behind her thoughts. Lena followed the salt trails to Node 6, hidden beneath Bolivia's Salar de Uyuni. It was already humming, already awake. There was no dome here, only a tear in the horizon, like a thin crack in the film of the world. Through it, she saw herself, wearing white, smiling, saying nothing. Am I ahead of myself? The Lena in white reached out. Lena fell backward. The crack sealed. The hum continued. Section, Global lensing satellite data began to show gravitational fluctuations, small at first, then undeniable, not chaotic, orchestrated. The Earth's axis shifted by 0.0004 degrees. The stars no longer aligned to ancient charts. Telescopes captured a lensing effect across the southern sky. It wasn't gravity. It wasn't mass. It was as if the universe itself was folding inward, drawn toward a single focal point, Earth. Earth was not the center. It was the correction field. Section, Consciousness. Drift people began reporting shared dreams, shared thoughts, strangers finishing each other's sentences across cities. A chess grandmaster in Reykjavik fell into a trance mid-match and began weeping. They're using us as containers, cleaning out the static, compacting the noise. It's not extermination, it's migration. Then he died. No cause, just ceased. Brain smooth as polished glass. Section, Claire's return. Lena didn't walk to the next node. Claire found her, at the edge of the Salar, standing under a black sun that hadn't risen. 6 are lit. 1 remains. And then the gate opens. What happens then? Nothing ends. It only condenses. You're not Claire. Neither are you. Why are you doing this? We are not doing. We are becoming. What was human was a draft. This is the final rendering. A single shortwave unit, analog. She broadcast a message to no one. If you hear this, if your mind still feels yours, find a mirror. Watch it. If your reflection moves first, run. Don't think. Don't wait. Just run. She never knew if anyone heard her. The countdown begins. On day 16, the pulses changed. No longer 7 hours apart. Now, one every hour. Each one shorter, louder, sharper. Earth's magnetic field began to thrum. Compasses spun. Birds dropped from the sky. Whales beached without warning. The poles grew quiet. Sensors stopped returning signals. The nodes were now active simultaneously. The seventh node. Lena found the seventh node in an abandoned observatory near Lake Baikal. Inside, nothing. No sphere, no pulse. Just an old telescope, pointing straight up. She looked through it and saw herself. Standing on another world. No sky, no stars. Only mirrors. Hundreds. And in each one, a different Earth. Some burning. Some empty. One just beginning. She stepped away. The telescope exploded. Final scene. The cascade. On day 17 at precisely 3:03 a.m. UTC, the Earth flashed. No sound. No warning. Just a split-second shimmer across the planet. When it passed, things were the same. Almost. A child in Tokyo no longer remembered her father's face. A teacher in Istanbul found pages in his journal he never wrote, full of symbols and algorithms beyond known mathematics. And Lena? She stood on a beach that didn't exist yesterday, holding a flower that had no genus, smiling, and behind her, the mirror still open. Chapter 9. One Must Stay. Day 18. There were no more pulses, no more shimmering skies or collapsing clocks. The air was still. The clouds behaved. The birds flew again, some of them species Lena didn't recognize. The world had gone back to normal, except it wasn't. Lena sat beneath a rusting radio tower in northern Siberia. Her boots were ruined, her coat torn, her journal swollen with new pages she hadn't written. Her breath fogged the air, but not the mirror. The mirror stood beside her, tall, thin, freestanding in the snow, reflective, wrong. She watched it warily. The reflection blinked before she did. Upstairs 10. The dream of the station again. The smell of metal and blood. The drone of machinery failing to keep up with purpose. Tommy was there. Rivera. Claire. Emmett stood in the corner, cleaning his rifle. He looked up and said one word, "Stay." She jolted awake. Her hands were bleeding. She'd carved the same word into the snow with a jagged rock. Stay. Again and again. The final configuration. The lattice had completed. Across the planet, all 7 nodes now pulsed in harmony, not visibly, not even measurably, but felt. The dreams, the rewriting, the refracted starlight, Earth had become a mirror engine, a lens not just for observation, but for transition. You don't need ships to migrate a civilization, just vessels, just minds. Hashtag a message in the sky. Lena walked to the top of the ridge near the frozen tower and stared upward. There, faint but visible, stretched across the Arctic sky, a glyph, drawn in contrails? No, in distortion, a symbol from her journal. The final page, a combination of 7 lines and a single point, the lattice signature. And beneath it, forming in the snow, words, "One must stay, to hold the gate." Lena Weiss accepted. No, I didn't accept anything. The mirror shimmered beside her. She saw herself, nodding, smiling. She stepped away from it, heart pounding. I didn't agree. I didn't. But the reflection held the memory, a memory she didn't have. Hashtag the application. It came in a flash, another world, another Lena, sitting in the lab at CERN, filing a form, not digital, physical. Pen on paper. Volunteer, long-form cosmic observation project. Her signature. Her voice saying yes. But it wasn't her. Not this her. How many of me are there? Hashtag the role of the anchor. To hold the lattice stable during phase traversal, a local consciousness was required. Not AI, not symbolic code, but a human mind, embedded, fixed, a soul-shaped weight to hold the threads of rewritten timelines together. She was the most viable. Cross-node exposure, direct contact with two lattice cores, mirror-resistant. But she hadn't volunteered. Not here, not now. She'd simply been chosen. By herself. #the meeting. At dusk, Claire returned. Not walking, just arriving. Like a thought suddenly present. It's time. No, not yet. There's nothing left to delay. The migration is complete. The transit held. But the gate is trembling. One more fluctuation and... I didn't choose this. You did. Just not here. Why does it have to be me? Because you never looked away. Lena dropped to her knees. She thought of her mother's hands, the warmth of a lab in Berlin, the smell of ozone on old machinery. It doesn't mean death. No, it means watching forever. Yes. #the conditions. Claire drew a circle in the snow. 7 glyphs at the edges, 1 at the center. She stepped aside. Step into the center. You will remain. The lattice will hold. What happens if I don't? Your lattice collapses. Your version is purged. And if I step in, you never leave, but your world does. Does it remember me? Only in dreams. The final decision. Lena stood, stepped into the circle. The snow didn't crunch. The sky didn't change. But the mirror behind her shimmered and froze, solid. The lattice snapped into place. The hum stopped. Everything went still. Across that lattice, a man in Toronto wakes up and feels like he's forgotten something important. A woman in Nairobi finishes a painting she doesn't remember starting. 7 circles in a spiral. A child in Brisbane walks into the ocean, pauses, and says to no one, "She's watching. We're safe now." Across that lattice, Lena, forever Lena, stands in the glass chamber beneath the Siberian node. Her body is unchanged. Her heartbeat steady. Her thoughts clear. But the world spins differently now. Memories pass through her. Versions of herself, millions, whisper to her in dreams. This isn't death, it's maintenance. I am the archive. I am the seal. She closes her eyes. In the mirror, all of Earth. Like a snow globe, like a lens, like home. Chapter 10, The Watcher awakes. There was no light in the void. No sound, no radiation, no time. Only the slow, steady hum of the lattice. Vibrating across dimensions like a spiderweb in space. Earth sat at its center, small, spinning, ordinary, and now, complete. Stability achieved. In a control chamber deep below the Siberian crust, Lena Weiss stood motionless. Her mind held a lattice of unimaginable complexity. Each node, Boreal, Uyuni, Atacama, Baikal, resonated through her like tuning forks. She felt their pulses like breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The circle was whole. And with that, the signal changed. No longer searching, now summoning. The final mirror activates in Madagascar. An old man stood before a stone basin and wept, though he didn't know why. In Kamchatka, a volcano shuddered once and then went still. Its magma had frozen in a perfect spiral. In space, a satellite that hadn't responded in 23 years flickered to life and began transmitting a single phrase. This one is ready. No one on Earth understood the signal, but somewhere, someone did. Across that lattice, the Watcher. It didn't arrive. It revealed itself. Far beyond the stars, beyond pulsars and nebulae, beyond what even black holes could devour. There was a shape. It was not a being. It was a pattern. Geometric, interlocking, endless. It turned its attention toward the completed lens, and in doing so, the stars bent inward. Across the galaxy, worlds blinked out, not gone, but turned away, no longer in focus. Earth had the Watcher's eye now. Lena's connection. Lena's body never moved, but her mind stretched like light through crystal. She saw civilizations that never rose, species that chose silence over speech, versions of Earth where humans burned out in stone tools, and ones where they became gods. She saw herself, again and again, as mirror, vessel, and voice. She was not alone. She was the convergence, the whispered command. The Watcher sent no words, no image, just one concept: maintain. A command, a compliment, a warning. It echoed through Lena's bones, through the soil, through the atmosphere. Earth was no longer adrift in random probability. It had been catalogued, indexed, observed. What the world sees. To most people, nothing changed. Clocks ticked, babies cried, traffic jammed, but underneath, historians noticed gaps in world chronology. Scientists received data they didn't collect. Musicians awoke with melodies they couldn't explain. And dreams, oh the dreams. Everyone, at least once, would dream of standing on a frozen lake, beneath a sky full of spirals, watched by something kind and terrible. Underclass. The signal ends at 3:03 a.m. The hum stopped, the nodes dimmed, the mirrors fogged, the sky stilled. Earth returned to silence, an ordinary blue dot once again. But now, the dot was watched, and Lena remained. Underclass. Lena, the lens. She no longer needed to speak. She didn't breathe. She didn't age. She simply reflected. Through her, the watcher viewed humanity, not to judge, but to remember. Every tragedy, every triumph, every anomaly. Noted, stored, held. In the quiet beneath the ice, Lena smiled. Final broadcast. One last shortwave signal emerged from a buried repeater station in Greenland. The message contained no words, only glyphs, spirals, 7 of them, and one phrase etched into the static. This one holds, this one stands. Begin the next. Underclass, the end of the observation zone, of the unobserved Earth, of the idea that we were alone. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, ring the bell, and tell your friends about my listening library.